Today, we dive into Personality Isn't Permanent by Benjamin Hardy and learn how to intentionally design who you become next. Benjamin Hardy directly challenges one of the most deeply rooted assumptions in modern culture: the belief that personality is fixed. From a young age, people are categorized. We are labeled as shy, outgoing, anxious, creative, analytical, leaders, followers, introverts, or extroverts. Schools, workplaces, and even personality assessments reinforce these labels. Over time, these descriptions stop being observations. They become identities. Hardy argues that this belief system is not only misleading, but dangerous. Modern psychology, especially trait-based models, has popularized the idea that personality traits are stable over time. While traits may show patterns, Hardy explains that research actually demonstrates personality changes significantly across the lifespan. Yet culturally, we treat personality as permanent. When someone says, "That's just who I am," they are often protecting a fixed identity. This creates psychological rigidity. Instead of asking, "Who do I want to become?" people ask, "Who am I?" And that shift in focus changes everything. When we define ourselves by our history, we unconsciously defend that identity, even if it no longer serves us. For example, if someone sees themselves as bad at public speaking, they avoid opportunities to improve. If someone identifies as not disciplined, they justify procrastination. If someone believes they are naturally anxious, they stop working on emotional resilience. The identity becomes self-reinforcing. Humans are highly adaptive. But when identity is treated as fixed, growth feels like betrayal of the self. Hardy critiques the overuse of personality assessments. While they can provide insight, he argues they are often misused as predictive tools rather than descriptive snapshots. A test captures who you are in a specific emotional state, environment, and stage of life. It does not define your future. The danger is when people internalize results as permanent truth. "I am this type of person." Instead of seeing personality as flexible and evolving, people freeze their identity at one moment in time. The past shapes us, sometimes deeply. However, he emphasizes that interpreting the past as permanent identity is optional. Your experiences influence you, but they do not imprison you unless you decide they do. He highlights that memory itself is reconstructive. We reinterpret our past constantly. Therefore, if the past is fluid in memory, identity built on that past is also fluid. Your personality should be driven by your future self, not your past self. Hardy argues that growth begins when you define yourself by your aspirations rather than your history. When your future vision becomes stronger than your past narrative, transformation accelerates. Instead of asking, "Is this who I am?" you ask, "Is this aligned with who I want to become?" That subtle shift moves identity from fixed to intentional. So why do people cling to fixed personality beliefs? Because certainty feels safe. A stable identity reduces anxiety. It simplifies decisions. It protects ego. But it also limits potential. Hardy suggests that believing personality is permanent reduces responsibility. If traits are fixed, then change is impossible. And if change is impossible, effort feels unnecessary. But if personality is flexible, then growth requires ownership, and ownership is uncomfortable. Before you can redesign your life, you must challenge the belief that you are stuck as you are. Because if personality isn't permanent, then neither are your limits. And that realization is where transformation begins. He argues that personality is a byproduct, not a cause. It is the result of choices, context, goals, and environment, not an unchangeable core identity. Personality is shaped by context. One of the central truths Hardy presents is that personality shifts dramatically depending on environment. You are not the same person with close friends in a job interview. During a crisis, when pursuing a meaningful goal, context activates different behaviors, emotions, and traits. This alone challenges the idea of a stable, singular personality. Human beings are adaptive systems. We respond to what our environment demands. Change the environment, and behavior changes. Change behavior consistently, and personality evolves. Personality follows commitment. Personality aligns with what you are committed to. When someone commits deeply to becoming a parent, starting a business, training for a marathon, living sober, building a career, their behaviors shift. Over time, their identity shifts. Eventually, what once felt out of character becomes natural. Hardy emphasizes that commitment precedes identity. You don't become confident and then act boldly. You act boldly repeatedly, and confidence forms. Personality follows repeated action. Your current personality reflects the goals you have, the standards you tolerate, the future you believe is possible. If your future vision is small, your behavior contracts. If your future vision expands, your personality adapts to meet it. This means personality is not discovered internally. It is constructed externally through vision and direction. Who you believe you are becoming shapes who you are today. He explains that unresolved trauma can freeze aspects of personality. People often become stuck in defensive patterns created for survival. But he emphasizes something critical. Survival responses are not permanent traits. They were intelligent adaptations to past environments. When the environment changes, and when healing occurs, personality shifts as well. Thus, even emotional patterns are flexible with intentional work. Identity is largely a story. We construct a narrative about who we are based on memory. But memory itself is not fixed. It is constantly reconstructed. That means identity built on memory is also reconstructive. If you change the meaning of your past, you change your present identity. Hardy suggests that people who grow rapidly often rewrite their personal story in empowering ways, not by denying the past, but by redefining its meaning. The truth of personality is liberating, but it is also demanding. If personality is flexible, you are not stuck, but you are responsible. Growth becomes a choice rather than luck. Transformation becomes intentional rather than accidental. Hardy argues that this realization shifts people from passive living to active design. If personality is shaped by context, commitment, and vision, then by changing what you commit to and what you aim for, you literally reshape who you are. You are not a fixed personality. You are a developing system shaped by direction. And direction can always change. If personality isn't permanent, then trauma doesn't have to be permanent either. But Hardy makes an important distinction. Trauma does shape us. The problem is not the experience itself. It's when we unconsciously build our identity around it. Trauma shapes identity. If, left unexamined, many behaviors people label as personality traits are actually survival adaptations. For example, perfectionism may be a response to criticism. Avoidance may be protection from rejection. Anger may be a shield against vulnerability. Overachievement may stem from a need for validation. These behaviors were once intelligent coping mechanisms. They helped us survive emotionally difficult environments, but survival strategies can become identity prisons when we stop questioning them. Trauma is not the event, it's the meaning. Trauma is less about what happened and more about the meaning assigned to what happened. Two people can experience the same event and interpret it differently. Over time, that interpretation becomes part of their identity narrative. Hardy emphasizes that memory is reconstructive. We don't remember events objectively. We remember them through emotional filters. And each time we recall a memory, we subtly reshape it. This means the past is not frozen. It is editable at the level of meaning. When trauma becomes central to self-definition, people may unconsciously organize their lives around that pain. It becomes part of how they explain their limitations. Hardy does not dismiss suffering. Instead, he argues that true healing requires separating the event from identity. You are not your trauma. You experience trauma. That distinction creates psychological space for growth. Hardy introduces the concept of post-traumatic growth, the idea that adversity can become a catalyst for transformation. Research shows that many people develop greater emotional strength, deeper relationships, clearer priorities, stronger purpose after navigating hardship. But this growth does not happen automatically. It requires conscious reframing and intentional integration. Pain can either shrink identity or expand it. Because identity is narrative-based, Hardy argues that healing involves rewriting the story of the past. This doesn't mean denying what happened. It means changing what it means. Instead of, "This happened to me, and it ruined me," the narrative becomes, "This happened to me, and it shaped my strength." When meaning changes, identity shifts. When identity shifts, behavior changes. When behavior changes, personality evolves. Processing trauma through reflection, therapy, journaling, honest conversation, and self-awareness allows emotional integration. Unprocessed pain leaks into present behavior. Processed pain becomes wisdom. When you define yourself by your future vision rather than your wounded past, the emotional charge of trauma begins to decrease. A compelling future reorganizes the meaning of the past. Your future self becomes stronger than your former pain. Your past may explain you, but it does not define you. When you transform the meaning of your trauma, you reclaim authorship of your identity. And once you reclaim authorship, personality becomes a choice, not a scar. Your personality is shaped by the story you believe about yourself. And stories can change. Identity is a narrative construction. Hardy explains that human beings are storytelling creatures. We organize memories, experiences, successes, and failures into a coherent narrative that explains who we are. I've always been shy. I'm not good with money. I come from a broken family. I've never been disciplined. Over time, these statements stop being descriptions. They become scripts. And once a script becomes internalized, behavior unconsciously aligns with it. Memory is reconstructive, not fixed. Every time we recall an event, we slightly rewrite it. Emotions, current circumstances, and beliefs influence how we interpret the past. This means your life story is not a fixed archive. It's an evolving narrative. If memory is flexible, identity built on memory is also flexible. That realization is transformative. Hardy emphasizes that shifting your story does not require denying painful experiences. Instead, it requires redefining their meaning. For example, failure can become evidence of inadequacy, or evidence of courage. Rejection can become proof of unworthiness or redirection toward better alignment. Hardship can become damage or development. The event remains the same. The meaning changes. And meaning is what shapes identity. Humans crave coherence. We want our past to make sense. The danger is that we often create overly simplified narratives that limit growth. We connect random experiences into rigid explanations about who we are. Hardy suggests that people who experience radical transformation often disrupt their own narrative coherence. They allow their identity to evolve beyond the logic of their past. Growth sometimes requires becoming inconsistent with your former self. Your vision of the future determines how you interpret your past. When you have a compelling future, past struggles look like preparation. Failures look like training. Pain looks like strengthening. Without a compelling future, the past feels heavy and deterministic. The stronger and clearer your future self becomes, the more your story reorganizes around growth instead of limitation. Hardy invites readers to move from being characters in their story to becoming authors. A character reacts to what happened. An author decides what it means. When you consciously shift your narrative, you reclaim agency. Instead of, "This is who I've always been," the narrative becomes, "This is who I am choosing to become." That shift moves identity from passive to intentional. Clinging to a rigid self-concept prevents transformation. Allowing your story to evolve enables it. Hardy reinforces that personality evolves when narrative evolves. Change the story, change the identity, change the behavior, change the life. Identity is built from the story you tell about your life. Memory is flexible, not fixed. Meaning shapes personality more than events do. Limiting narratives create self-fulfilling behaviors. A compelling future reshapes the interpretation of the past. You are not just the character. You are the author. Psychological flexibility is essential for growth. If personality is changeable, then the subconscious must be trainable. The subconscious drives personality. Hardy explains that most behavior is not consciously chosen in the moment. It is automatic. Habits, emotional reactions, confidence levels, self-talk. These are largely governed by subconscious conditioning. Your subconscious holds your beliefs about yourself, your expectations about the future, your emotional patterns, your behavioral defaults. In other words, your subconscious stores your identity blueprint. If that blueprint remains unchanged, behavior remains predictable. Habits reinforce identity, and identity reinforces habits. For example, if you subconsciously believe I'm not disciplined, you'll avoid situations that require discipline. If you believe I'm capable, you'll behave in ways that confirm that belief. Hardy emphasizes that repetition wires identity into the subconscious. The more consistently you act in alignment with a chosen future self, the more your subconscious updates. The subconscious responds strongly to emotion. Experiences that are emotionally intense, whether positive or negative, leave deep imprints. He suggests that deliberately creating emotionally meaningful goals and commitments accelerates subconscious transformation. Big commitments create big identity shifts. Environment shapes the subconscious. Your environment constantly programs your subconscious. The people you surround yourself with, the standards that are normalized, the expectations in your workplace, the culture you consume, all of these shape what feels normal to you. If your environment reflects mediocrity, your subconscious calibrates downward. If your environment reflects excellence, Your subconscious recalibrates upward. Change the environment, and you change subconscious expectations. When you vividly imagine and emotionally connect to a compelling future identity, your subconscious begins aligning with it. Your brain cannot clearly distinguish between vividly imagined experience and real experience. This means rehearsing your future self mentally helps condition new behavioral patterns. Over time, what once felt uncomfortable becomes natural. Hardy emphasizes that subconscious change is not accidental. It must be intentional. Consistent behavior aligned with desired identity, emotional engagement with future goals, surrounding yourself with higher standards, repetition of empowering beliefs, removing environments that reinforce outdated identity. Subconscious programming happens whether you control it or not. Most people operate reactively. Their subconscious was shaped by childhood, culture, and circumstance. When you consciously choose, you gradually enhance and upgrade your subconscious identity. And as subconscious identity evolves, personality transforms automatically. Subconscious transformation must be intentional. You don't change your personality by forcing behavior. You change it by upgrading your subconscious identity. When your subconscious expectations rise, your behavior rises naturally. Your personality is not fixed, it is programmed. And what is programmed can be reprogrammed. Benjamin Hardy makes a bold claim: willpower is overrated. Environment is more powerful than motivation. If personality is flexible and the subconscious is programmable, then the fastest way to change both is to redesign the environment shaping them. Behavior is heavily context-dependent. Most actions are not the result of character strength. They are responses to environmental cues. For example, you eat what is visible and accessible. You scroll when your phone is within reach. You work better in spaces associated with productivity. You think bigger when surrounded by ambitious people. Your surroundings constantly send signals to your brain about what is normal, acceptable, and expected. Over time, repeated behaviors in a consistent environment shape personality. Many people try to change through sheer discipline. Hardy argues that this is inefficient. Instead of asking, "How can I become more disciplined?" ask, "How can I design an environment where discipline is automatic?" When the desired behavior becomes the easiest behavior, change accelerates. Remove distractions. Increase friction for bad habits. Decrease friction for good habits. Environment makes success either uphill or downhill. Social environment is even stronger. Hardy emphasizes that people are one of the most powerful environmental forces. Your standards are shaped by the 5 people you spend the most time with, the expectations in your peer group, the ambition level of your circle. If mediocrity is normalized, growth feels extreme. If excellence is normalized, growth feels natural. Identity adapts to social expectation. To upgrade personality, upgrade proximity. One of Hardy's strongest arguments is that bold commitments reshape environment, and environment reshapes identity. For example, publicly committing to a goal increases accountability. Investing financially increases seriousness. Changing jobs or cities disrupts identity patterns. Major life changes often produce personality shifts because they force environmental adaptation. When you change context dramatically, your behavior must adapt, and identity follows. Hardy suggests that many people attempt transformation while remaining embedded in environments designed for their former identity. If you want to evolve, reduce exposure to environments tied to your past limitations. Create physical and psychological distance from former habits. Design spaces aligned with your future goals. Your future self requires a different ecosystem than your past self. Environment shapes the subconscious. Repeated exposure to high standards, growth-oriented conversations, clear expectations, structured routines, gradually rewires identity at a deep level. Personality changes faster when environment changes first. Hardy acknowledges that change can be gradual, but sometimes radical shifts create the most momentum. New city, new peer group, new career path, new daily structure. When the old cues disappear, the old personality weakens. Environment either protects your old identity or demands a new one. If you want a new personality, build a new environment. Stop trying to fight your surroundings. Start designing them. Because when your environment supports your future self, growth stops being exhausting and starts becoming inevitable. Remember, your personality isn't fixed. Your past doesn't define your future. You have the power to reshape your identity, rewrite your story, and intentionally design the person you want to become. Take what resonates, apply it, and start small. Every action aligned with your future self is a step toward becoming unstoppable. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe, share, and leave a review. And keep pushing forward, because the person you want to become is waiting on the other side of your choices.